Hello, this is Sophie Lawson from sophielawson.com, and this is episode 58 of the Sophie Art podcast, which is a little podcast that I do about the art and things. And you can find show notes and everything for this podcast at sophielawson.com, and the podcast is also recorded on video on YouTube, which you can find at youtube.com/sophielawson. And these podcasts are random topics, so I don't know what they are when I start them. And so last week, I just wanted to do a little bit of follow-up to last week, because last week's podcast was about a boot. I like the way Canadians say a boot. Last week's podcast was about social media and how you don't need social media. And I mentioned a podcast on there, which I put in last week's show notes, but just in case you didn't see the show notes, the podcast is called Secrets of the Most Productive People, and the episode was called How Can We Disconnect and Manage Digital Distraction. And it's a really good episode where they're talking about how, this bloke's on there talking about how you don't need social media, so I definitely recommend listening to that, and I'll put another link in this week's episode in the show notes. But on these podcasts, what I do is I got a little bag, and little Dennis, who's asleep at the minute, he basically pulls out a random topic, and then I have 3 rules, which are no editing, you got 15 minutes to talk about it, and no changing the topic. And that's the 3 rules. So I think let's just get straight into it. And I've got a little timer there, so that's where but Dennis is now going into the bag, and he's going to pull out a random topic, and we'll have to see what it is. If you've got a topic that you'd like me to talk about, or a question or anything, you can send a message to sophielawson.com/contact, and I'll try and get it on the show. But you can also leave a message in the comments. Dennis has picked the topic, and if he lets me have it, Dennis can go now. It is a pink one, and I think I saw the word SVS. So this week's topic is, no it's not, this week's topic is about sacrifice. So 15 minutes. This is really weird, but these topics, they keep relating to things that are really on my mind. So the topic is talk about sacrifice, and basically you can go anywhere with that. So what I'm going to talk about is, because recently I've started really thinking about, because at the moment I do 2 little part-time jobs. What I'm going to do on this one, I'm going to talk about sacrifice in terms of, I'll just put Dennis in the bowl. I liked it when that happened. I'm going to talk about sacrifice and how it's related to drawing, like art, and sort of pursuing a passion, I suppose, but also sprinkling in like the transition thing. So what I've got these 2 day jobs. One of the day jobs covers my bills, and the other one, I'm really only doing it to pay for my transition, so to pay for like laser removal on my face, train journeys to the gender clinic and stuff like that. But what I've started thinking is sacrificing one of these jobs, and I've actually thought, would I be willing to sacrifice like my transition? It sounds a bit weird because I've pretty much already transitioned, but would I be willing to sacrifice paying for laser? Because the thing is, I want to go all in on my drawing, but I also want the balance. But one of these day jobs is, if I'm being honest, it's slightly a negative environment. So I'm thinking I've started thinking, can I get rid of that day job and then sacrifice a lot of things for my art, really? So what I would be sacrificing, I've already sacrificed so much. I've sacrificed video games. I've sacrificed watching TV, because there is stuff on TV that I would like to watch, like Formula 1. I love Formula 1. Something I love is you can sacrifice things without sacrificing them fully. So like with Formula 1, I used to be obsessed with it, and I would watch every single session that was on the TV. But when I started drawing, my weekends were so much, when you're watching Formula 1 or something like that, so much of the weekend is geared around Formula 1 that trying to do other stuff, it has to fit in around the Formula 1. So I decided that I wanted my art to be the priority and everything else to fit in around that. So I basically stopped watching Formula 1 live, and it happened over about 4 years. It was a very gradual process. What I did at first was, because I used to watch practice sessions, qualifying and the race, which was Friday, Saturday, Sunday. I first started by not watching Fridays, but I would still watch qualifying and the race. I did that for a little bit, and then I stopped watching qualifying. And then what happens is, it's really good, because when you're obsessed with something like that, you think you can never stop watching it. But when you stop watching like the Friday practice, and you get so much time, it frees up so much time, you start realising I don't actually even need it. And all you've got to do is, well, with Formula 1, it's amazing. On the YouTube channel with Formula 1, they show the highlights of all the sessions now. So it worked out really well in that I was able to stop watching the sessions, which were like 2 hours each, and I can still watch the main bits of it, but in like 5-minute videos. So I'm still watching it, but I'm not basing my life around it. And I gradually did that until I got to the whole weekend, where I could stop watching the whole weekend. And it's another one of these things that I've talked about before, where when you sacrifice one thing like that, which you think, because I always thought there's no way I could stop watching Formula 1, and then when you do that and you realise you can, you start looking at everything and thinking, what else can I sacrifice? And that's when you start thinking, like video games and stuff. Video games has been very up and down with me, but Formula 1 and TV, I've managed to sacrifice that, and I've kept it. But I think you do have, when you're sacrificing something, you have to, this is what I think. The only way you can sacrifice something is if the thing you're sacrificing it for is more powerful. So like, if you love and obsessed with video games, you have to make the art even more like an obsession, and even more, you have to become even more obsessed with it. Because then if you can do that, it's much easier then to let go of other things. So I'm now thinking, it's a crazy thought, and it scares me and it excites me at the same time. So what I did was, I had to take another day job, a second part-time job, in order to pay for all this laser and stuff. But I'm thinking, I'm thinking, can I let that go? Because the thing with this transition is, it is a distraction, and I was going to say I know it will pass and it will end, but maybe I've reached a point where I'm content with how I am. And this is funny, because I did an episode a few weeks ago about my hair, how I haven't fully accepted my hair. So I started thinking, if I stop having the laser hair removal, like over a couple of months, little bits of hair would start to form on my face, and I would have to accept that. I've done it before, like when I have to go to a session to have laser electrolysis, where she like zaps each individual hair. You have to go a few days without shaving anything. So I'm going to work for those couple of days with little bits of hair everywhere. And the thing is, it doesn't bother me, because I'm thinking, like, if anyone judged me with that, it wouldn't bother me, because I know I've only got that hair because I've got to do that to go to this, to get it removed. But I'm thinking, if I made my focus, if I knew that I was doing it for my art, if I was sacrificing it for my art, if anybody judged me on my face, my facial hair, I'd be able to be like, I'm alright with that, because I'm doing it for my art. And then, if I could do that with that, I feel like I would then be able to do it with my hair. So, and it's also, I'm going to look at it as an experiment. What I'm going to do is, this is the plan at the moment, I'm going to save up a bunch of money, and then quit one of my part-time jobs. The other job will be able to pay for all my bills, but it's just going to be like, it's just going to make it so it's going to be a situation where I won't be able to buy pretty much anything else, and I have to be really strict and disciplined on this. Even like buying art tools, I would have to think about it. This is why I want to build up a little bit of a buffer of money, which would pay for my art tools and like my SVS Learn subscription and stuff. And as long as I plan it, I think I can do it. And I was thinking about this earlier. It's like you would be, it's really weird. You would be, because you would have less money, you would be really tight on money, you feel like you would be compromised. But I actually felt like you'd actually be free, because the amount of time that you're going to gain from not doing that other job, it feels like it would somehow I feel like it'd be freedom. I'm really excited to do it, but I'm scared because I know I'm going to do it. And I've been here before with other things. In 2014, I quit a job that I had had for 12 years. And exactly the same feeling. It was, they offered us voluntary redundancy, and I knew I was going to do it, but I was terrified. And when I started thinking last night, because what happened last night, something happened at work, and I thought to myself, I don't really want, well, I just thought I can't be bothered with it really. It's very silly, but I'm a nice person, so I just was nice. But in my head, something clicked, and I said, I'm out. I've pretty much decided I'm going. So now it's a case of, am I going to go and get another part-time job, or am I going to find a way to have one part-time job? But yeah, because you start, when you think about stuff like this, you think about everything, and you start thinking, sometimes I do, because, yeah, all over the place, but sometimes I do think, before I found art, life was so simple. It was so simple, because all you did was you woke up, you went to work, because you weren't doing any of this spiritual stuff or anything, you could fill your face with sweets, sit in front of the TV, and you were ignorant to it, and in a weird way, it was bliss. But I had this thing where I was in denial about being transgender, so it's quite complicated. But because I even start thinking, like, sometimes I do resent this transition because it has so distracted my art, but then I know it's made me a much better person. So yeah, it's a really complicated one, that. But yeah, I do start thinking, like, how, because the minute when you start looking into all this stuff and you start becoming aware of things, the more you become aware of things, the harder it gets. Which it's a bit weird, because you would think it'd go the other way. You would think as you become aware of issues, you'd be able to resolve them and move on. But what happens is you become aware of them. So now, whereas before, like an example is eating like sweets or something. Before, you could just eat these sweets and you would just eat them and enjoy them. You wouldn't eat them and think, these sweets are bad for me. Whereas now, you can't eat a sweet because you eat the sweet and you think, this sweet is bad for me. So I even start wondering, is it better to be aware of, is it better to be ignorant? Sometimes, but that's a little bit of a side thing. But in terms of like sacrifice, I've said it so many times. You really have to sacrifice. I look back at 2013. I go back to that year a lot because that's the year where that year is quite a powerful year to me. 2013 into 2014. It's one of those. It's another one of those things that when you do something, it doesn't matter what happens after it, because you know you've done that. It gives you confidence because you know you've done something quite hard before. You know you can do it again. So for that year, I focused like I've never focused like that before, and I focused on pencil drawing, and my pencil drawings went from like they advanced so much in that 1 year. In that 1 year, my pencils advanced more than the 5 years after because I was so focused. But I was only able to be focused because I sacrificed everything. But I sacrificed everything, but still kept bits of it. So like I sacrificed video games, but I was still playing. No, I wasn't playing any video games then. I sacrificed anime. I was watching one anime a day. So it was like 25 minutes of anime a day. And I was able to, as I was watching the anime, I was pausing it and sketching. So I brought it together. Whereas I didn't fully get rid of anime, but before drawing, I was watching like 20 episodes of anime a day and stuff. Again, it is all about balance, this, but I think you have to sacrifice in order to make progress in anything. But it's a case of working out what should you be sacrificing and what shouldn't you. So if I can sacrifice one of these part-time jobs, it would be incredible. But it would only work if I have that focus again. And I in a weird way, I feel like everything's sort of coming together. It's really weird. I could talk about something which would sound crazy, but I only took this second job because the universe told me to take it, and I kept resisting it, saying I don't want to do it. I don't want to do it. But in my automatic writing, it kept saying take that job, so I took it, and it's been the best thing and the worst thing. But I've learnt so much through this job. It's been a challenging job for so many reasons, but I've learnt so much, and I feel like it's got me to a place now where I'm going to be able to focus, but I'm going to have to sacrifice. I'm going to have to sacrifice to make it. But again, I've been thinking about this. You got to risk it for a biscuit. That's basically 15 minutes. That went quite quick. I feel like I rambled all over the place, but there's something in there that I'm trying to work out. I know that you need sacrifice. Yeah, and I'm ready to sacrifice a lot of things. You need sacrifice and focus. But I think if you sacrifice things, this is what I'm saying. If I get rid of that other job, I'm going to be putting my back against the wall, like. But I feel like that's what you need sometimes. You need to be under intense pressure to get the focus. Because if life is too easy, if you've got loads of money, well, not loads of money, but if you've got enough money to just go and buy what you want, there's no real incentive to. I think Sean McCabe at SeanWest.com called it golden handcuffs. It's this thing where people are sometimes stuck in a job because they've got so much money in this job. They feel like they can't leave because if they leave, their whole life is going to have to change. But I think sometimes you have to. Oh, little Dennis, he doled the gong. That's basically this week's topic. It's all about sacrifice. I don't know if that was a rambly one or not. I think it was, but it's something that's on my mind actually. I do like how these topics seem to keep relating to things. So that's basically it. I don't think there's going to be any links or anything, but you can find show notes at sophielawson.com, and you can find the video at youtube.com/sophielawson. I'm gonna put this one back in the bag because it was only last night that I started thinking about doing this. This is why I think this topic come up, because I need to think about it, and that's probably why I was rambling a bit, because I haven't fully thought about it. But it's really interesting because it's a scary thing, but it's exciting to start sacrificing things. It's amazing how easy it is. Once you do one thing, you start little, sacrifice something little, you kind of get a buzz for it, and then you start sacrificing loads of stuff, and before you know it, it's amazing how much stuff you don't need, like that you pay for. It's amazing how much stuff you don't need that you think you do, but when you get rid of it, you realise I didn't need that, and most of the time it will free up time, because if you can shorten the amount of time that you're at the day job, you're going to gain so much more time to do what you really want to be doing. So that's basically it, really. I thought for this week's topic I would take a little quote from the back of this book, which is The War of Art by Pressfield, and I heard 2 different podcasts mention this book, and if I hear anybody talk about a book, it goes in my head, and if I hear multiple people mention a book, I always go and buy it, unless of course I haven't got a second day job, in which case I wouldn't be able to just go and buy a book. This is the thing, you have to start thinking. Yeah, it's a risky one, but again, I think it's, if you can get enough money saved up, take a couple of years of saying no to a lot of things, like just buying a book. For instance, I've got so many books on my bookshelf, I don't really need to buy any more books. So maybe if I did sacrifice a lot of things in my life, I could actually start reading these books instead of buying more books. So there's lots of little benefits like that. Again, it's a bit like my Copic markers. I was going to buy 1 Copic marker a week because I wanted to try and collect all these Copic markers, and then I thought to myself, I've got like about 50, maybe even about 100. I've got a lot of flex markers, which are like a poor man's Copic, really. They're like cheapy versions of Copic, but they work, and my drawing of characters isn't like amazing at the minute, so it doesn't really matter that if I'm using Copics. So I thought, well, I can save £4 a week by not buying a Copic and instead using my flex markers, and then that'll probably, I've got enough flex markers there to last me for like probably easily a year or something. And again, I've got to start using the things I'm buying, otherwise what is the point in buying them? It's funny, but this book is one of the books I want to read, and I got loads of these books. Like I say, I'm struggling to read books, so yeah, the goal would be quit one of these day jobs. You're going to free up 15 hours, well, it's actually 18 hours. You'd free up 18 hours a week, could put some of that towards reading, which would be nice. But the quote goes to Pressfield, and it is, "Creative work is a gift to the world and every being in it. Don't cheat us of your contribution. Give us what you've got." Pressfield.